Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. In today's video, we've got my team selection ahead of Game Week 25. We've also got a little look at my watch list, my transfer plans, and also my updated chip strategy over the coming doubles and blanks as well. If you are enjoying the content here on this channel, please do remember to like, comment, and subscribe. But without further ado, let's jump into today's video. So guys, because it is a team selection video, just a massive shout out to the official sponsors of the team selection videos here on this channel, OneFootball. If you're new to this channel and you don't know who OneFootball are, they are the best free football app on the market. As you can see via the screen recording on the screen right now, they have everything you could possibly need. They have a live ticker during the match, live notifications during the match. They have a table for both home and away form. They've got different forms of news, whether that be press conference updates, injury updates, transfer rumours potentially. And they've also got some really in-depth stats for each of the different players and also the different teams as well. This app can basically act as your companion through both FPL and football during the week and also at the weekend as well. So if you want to stay up to date with the latest football possible and download the best free football app, and you also want to help support the channel and support me, you can do both of those things for free by scanning the QR code in the top left corner of the screen or by clicking the link in the description. If you do download OneFootball, as I always say, let me know what you think of it down in the comments below. So just a quick recap for Game Week 24. It was another disappointing week personally for me. It was another red arrow. But you guys know that I try and maintain a positive attitude no matter what. And the silver lining to take from this is that I think I've had 4 red arrows on the bounce now, but my rank hasn't changed that much. And that's because when I have bad weeks, they don't tend to be too bad. And when I have a good week, they tend to be a very good week. So I'm sort of getting 3 or 4 red arrows on the bounce. They're quite small. And I'll have a massive green arrow. Then I'll have a few red arrows in a row. And I'm sort of maintaining that rank around 50k-ish. So I think I'm about 8 points off 50k now. I'm sort of 40, 50 points off top 10k. So I do need to start pushing on now. But I'm relatively happy with the rank at this stage of the season with all of my chips in play, with so many doubles to come. If you're not too happy with your rank, there is still so much to play for. And you could still get so many points in the back end of the season. Unfortunately, this was a game week where almost every 50-50 decision I had to make went against me, apart from one key one. And we will start with the positive, which is deciding to play Ramsdale ahead of De Gea. So at the time of recording, this bonus points haven't been confirmed, but it looks pretty certain that Ramsdale's going to pull in a 9-pointer for me, whereas De Gea only got a 2-pointer. So that's absolutely massive, getting an extra 7 points there from Ramsdale. I'd been pretty certain all week on playing Ramsdale. I know a few people thought that the Manchester United clean sheet against Burnley was more likely, but as I said, Ramsdale's great for saves, he's great for bonus points, and Wolves are just really, really poor in attack. So I'm very happy with that choice. The other choices in defence, there were a few of them. The first was whether to play Dalot or Dawson. I do maintain that I believe that Dalot was still the correct choice. I'm happy enough with the thought process behind that. But then the second decision was around my bench order. I didn't know whether to put Dawson ahead of King. And in the end, that did come back to bite me. And I did lose 4 points as a result because, as we know, Calvert-Lewin didn't play. King came on for a 2-pointer, and I could have had Dawson for an extra 4 points. And that would have been the difference between a red arrow and basically a grey arrow or a small green. I did decide to captain Cancelo over Jota in the end, and that was a massive point swing. So that does hurt, especially if you watch the Man City game. Cancelo had so many opportunities to score. He got man of the match. He was definitely the best player on the pitch. 7 points isn't terrible, but for Bowen's getting an 11-pointer, KDB to get an 11-pointer, Jota to get a 16-pointer, all of the other good captaincy shouts, apart from potentially Harry Kane, all did really, really well. So it hurts slightly, but again, I'm very, very happy with the thought process. I thought a City clean sheet was quite likely, which happened. I thought that Cancelo's great for bonus. He did get up a bonus point, and he had quite a few opportunities to score goals as well. And I think he could have potentially on another day done really, really well. Maybe got like a 15, 18, 21 pointer there. So I'm not too displeased with the thought process, and I think it was the correct decision in the end. Outside of that, really, really disappointing. I'd like to get rid of all 3 of my strikers, which we're going to discuss in the next section, the watch list section, and also when we do a bit of tinkering at the end. King, Antonio, and Calvert-Lewin, very disappointing. Antonio did end up playing despite being flagged. Calvert-Lewin didn't end up playing despite the flag being cleared. They're just both massive issues in my team, Calvert-Lewin and Antonio. And whilst King is still very cheap, and therefore you can't expect too much from him, still incredibly disappointing. And I think if you own King and Dennis or own one of them, I think like me, you'll be looking to ship them on very, very soon. But of course, they do have that double in Game Week 26. The rest of the midfield perform really poorly as well. Foden, Fernandes and Gray all blanking. Very disappointing. Gray coming off with an injury. Manchester United and Fernandes just looking very, very poor again. All 3 of my Manchester United players blanking. And Foden just didn't look that great again. He had a few opportunities, but again, he is another player that I am looking to move on sooner rather than later. So I'm not too displeased with the performance of my team. It was an okay week, small red arrow, but I am looking at a few members of my team, which we've discussed for a few weeks now, and they need to start being moved on. So it's about how can I navigate double game week 25, double game week 26, the blank in 27, and then the fixture swing in 28. So without further ado, let's discuss all of that stuff. So as always, going to start with what my team looks like without any transfers, discuss if I have any transfer plans, discuss my watch list, and then also do a live tinker at the end. Starting with the defense for game week 25. Basically perfect. On paper anyway. I'm sure it won't turn out that way, and I know Manchester United haven't been fantastic defensively. But if you were building a free hit for game week 25, this would probably be the back five you would have, including the keeper. So starting with De Gea, obviously Ramsdale blanks, but I would have played De Gea anyway because of the double. I'm still quite hopeful that Manchester United will get one clean sheet here, potentially two. And even if not, just with save points and appearance points, hopefully you're looking at a sort of 5 or 6 points minimum from De Gea across those two games. Also got Dalot in there. Dalot is definitely first choice. Dalot was definitely first choice anyway, but seeing how Manchester United are lining up recently with Rangnick's almost copying what Pep Guardiola has done with Cancelo, and Dalot is almost playing as like an inverted fullback. So rather than him overlapping and playing quite wide, he's actually filling in as almost like a fourth or fifth midfielder at points. So I don't think that realistically, if Rangnick wants to continue that methodology, I can't imagine that Wan-Bissaka would be able to do that. Wan-Bissaka's poor enough when it's out on the wing with the ball, but coming into midfield, I think Dalot's the only one that can do that. That being said, I think the only time where we will see rotation is potentially in a double game week where the games are tightly grouped together. So I'm slightly wary, but I'm confident that Dalot should start one, and I've got to play him anyway. So I'm not too displeased to have Dalot this week. Cancelo and Trent, I've got a feeling they're going to outscore most doublers this week because they're just brilliant fixtures. They're so fantastic when they do play. We saw that from Cancelo and Trent in game week 24 as well, both getting clean sheets, both looking very, very good going forward. So I'm perfectly happy holding both of those, and they're pretty ideal fixtures for this week. And then the fourth defender in my back four is Cucurella. Again, I've owned Cucurella for about 4 game weeks now, and he's looked really, really good when he plays. He obviously had the blank in game week 24, but I'm very, very happy having him for game week 25. And because of the blank in 24, people will either have to use a transfer to bring in Cucurella this week, or they just won't own him. And I think he could do really well. That Watford game looks primed for a clean sheet. Brighton don't look as good as they did at the start of the season in defence, but they're still pretty good for their defensive numbers. And Manchester United don't look fantastic either. So I would hope that you'd get one clean sheet there from Cucurella, but like I said, hopefully at the very least sort of 4 points from appearances, or potentially 3. He should still get a few points there, fingers crossed anyway. And then the fifth defender is Dawson, who's currently my third sub. I don't want to hold Dawson long term. Dawson's one of those that I'd be looking to move on probably in game week 26, maybe for someone like a Tierney, which we'll discuss in the next section. But generally speaking, for game week 25, I think I've got basically the perfect defence on paper. It's just whether they end up delivering for me. To be honest, we spoke about how good the defence looks. The midfield actually looks pretty good as well. There are definitely a few key players that I'm not necessarily missing, but that I would definitely want to add, which again we'll discuss in the watch list section. Starting with Jota, obviously fresh off the back of his 16-pointer, I would still expect him to start this game. But if Mane is back, Salah will start. Mane will probably start if he gets enough training in. And also Firmino's looking decent. Diaz looked very, very good in that first half of the Liverpool game. So I don't think from now on, I don't think a Jota start is dead cert. But on the back of a brace in a 2-0 win, I can't see him really benching Jota from the start, but what I do think we'll start to see more often now, specifically in game week 25, is an early substitution, potentially like a 60 or 70 minute substitution. Bowen, again, I'm happy holding Bowen long term. Another 11 pointer in game week 24, still performing quite well, but West Ham just don't look that fantastic at the moment. Again, West Ham have no fixtures to be rearranged at all, and the fixtures aren't great that they do have coming up. They've obviously got Liverpool and Man City coming up in the next sort of 4 or 5 weeks. And then the fixtures after that from around game week 32, 33 aren't too bad. But I might be looking to wildcard around then anyway. So Bowen's definitely a player that I'm happy holding for now. He's not a priority, but one that I do have my eye on potentially from like game week 27, game week 28 onwards. Foden's a tricky one for me this week because Norwich is a fantastic fixture. But after Norwich, I probably don't want Foden anyway. And there is the potential that he's potentially rested in this game. Now, the only reason that I would say he's probably not rested, or 2 reasons, is Foden's definitely in Man City's starting 11, their strongest 11, and he came off early in game week 24. So I think the fact that he was rested, the fact he's in their strongest 11, and the fact that they do want to wrap up the Premier League as soon as possible, I do think he'll start this game. The annoying part about that, I suppose, is that I can get Salah in that Foden spot by doing 2 transfers, because you can see I've got 2.3 million in the bank. So if I thought there was any reason that Foden wouldn't be starting, I could get Salah in there alongside Fernandes. But taking out Foden before Norwich when I think there's a good chance he starts doesn't sit quite right with me. So I guess I'm irritated that Foden's likely to start in a good fixture, which sounds crazy. But I did want to get Salah in this week, but I'll probably have to wait till game week 26. And I've got Fernandes as my captain. Listen, Manchester United haven't been brilliant. Fernandes, whilst his underlying data is good, it's definitely sensationalized by one single game. The data skewed by one single game when he got about a 1.4 expected goal involvement. So whilst the numbers look good and Fernandes is definitely making improvements, I wouldn't necessarily look at this and say he's an incredible captaincy option. But when he's a premium player, definitely most likely to play both of the games in double game week, one of the only players with a double game week, I don't think you can realistically captain anyone else in this team. What I would say is if you don't own Fernandes and you do own De Gea, I do think De Gea is a really good shout. Southampton and Brighton are two fixtures where I actually think they're probably slightly better from a defensive perspective. De Gea is great for saves, and whilst Manchester United's defensive data isn't great, it's not as bad as potentially the goals conceded actually make it look. So I think De Gea is a fantastic captaincy option, but I can't realistically own Fernandes and not captain him. And I do think in my team, he's probably the best captaincy option this week. My fifth and final midfielder is Demarai Gray. Demarai Gray is definitely one that I'm potentially looking to move on soon. Despite the fact that he was injured, he also just doesn't look great, and Everton don't look great generally. We haven't seen anything under Lampard yet. Of course, it's very early days, but I'm not necessarily that keen to hold Demarai Gray, despite the fact that they do have 3 fixtures to be rearranged. I'm just not that keen on the Everton assets anymore. So Demarai Gray, the fifth midfielder, is probably the one that makes most sense to sell this week if I were to, but I don't think I desperately need to. Considering I've got a decent bench and a strong starting 11, I think rolling a transfer for game week 26 makes more sense rather than wasting it on like Demarai Gray to another midfielder. So that's currently the midfield 4 starting for me. Demarai Gray first sub. Like I said, if Demarai Gray is injured, I could potentially either sell him or just bring King or Dawson into that first sub position. Let's look at the final 2 strikers. So just finishing with the 2 strikers in my team, or the 3 strikers, including King on the bench. Listen, I don't particularly want any of these guys in my team, but I don't want any strikers in my team. As we'll discuss in the watch list section, even if I were to sell Antonio Calvert-Lewin or King, there aren't that many strikers that I particularly want. There are a couple of decent options, but that's only because we need strikers in our team. If I could realistically play like a 3-7 formation where I was playing 3 defenders and 7 midfielders each week, I think I would, and I think you guys probably would as well. A lot of the value appears to be at the moment in the midfield and even a little bit in the defence as well, but the striking positions just aren't it at the moment, and I think potentially a 4-5-1 might be the optimal strategy over the coming weeks, at least until we start to see something from the strikers. With respect to which strikers I'm prioritising at the moment potentially selling, King is probably the one that makes the most sense to sell just because Watford are so poor. I think they scored 1 goal in their last 5 games or 4 or 5 games. They just can't seem to score at the moment, and I don't think that's necessarily going to improve under Hodgson, but he's quite cheap and he does have a double in game week 26. So I feel quite comfortable benching King, whereas the other 2 you can't really bench at that price. It just doesn't make sense. So the other 2 are probably more priorities than King just due to price. When I look at the 2 of them, I think I'm prioritising probably selling Antonio. I know Calvert-Lewin's got more of the injury-prone issue than Antonio, at least this season. But with Antonio, he's got poor fixtures coming up, no fixtures to be rearranged, and no doubles at all. Even the blank in game week 27 that he's got, playing Wolves, it's not a great fixture. So I just look at Antonio, and there aren't many positives to keeping him. His expected goal involvement at the moment sitting around 0.3, 0.35 over the last sort of 6 to 10 games. He's just not worth that price tag with no doubles to even attack. He's definitely the priority sell for me if I were to move one of my strikers on. Yes, Calvert-Lewin is playing for a really poor Everton team. Yes, he's not up to full fitness at the moment, but they're decent enough fixtures over the coming weeks. Got the blank in game week 27. He does play even at City if I don't want to play the free hit. Likely to play in game week 30 as well. Decent fixtures and 3 fixtures to be rearranged. I just think that Calvert-Lewin out of Antonio Calvert-Lewin makes the most sense for me to keep. But realistically, I'd be pretty happy selling all 3 of my strikers. And they're definitely positions that I want to sell. But like I said, the issue is that the players that I want to bring in are in defence and midfield, and therefore that's probably where I'll be prioritising my transfers over the coming weeks. So that's the way the team looks currently. Set up in a 4-4-2, as I said, 2.3 million in the bank and 1 free transfer. Like I said, when I look at the bench, is pretty decent. I've got 4 double game week players. I've got a really good captaincy option in either De Gea or Fernandes. 2 good defenders with double game weeks. I think the team looks perfectly fine, and I don't think I necessarily need to make a transfer this week. If I am to make a transfer this week, it could potentially be Calvert-Lewin down to a cheap striker such as a Broja and Foden up to Salah for a -4. The reason I like that is that I get Salah in now for the Burnley game. He looked fantastic when he came off the bench in game week 24. I then have him in place for the captaincy for 26, and it means I don't need to sell Fernandes, who has Leeds in 26. So I can get Salah in for triple captaincy in 26. I don't need to sell Fernandes. I've then got a 2 premium structure, which might be good moving forward. But it means I have to sell Foden ahead of Norwich. And like I said, I do think the Foden's going to start that, and that could be a mega haul there. Norwich haven't been terrible defensively, but I don't think selling Foden as part of a -4 ahead of Norwich, and even Calvert-Lewin ahead of Leeds, or Antonio against Leicester, who have been pretty poor defensively, it probably doesn't make that much sense to do that -4. So, sorry, I should have said I would have done it for Antonio, not Calvert-Lewin. So Foden, Salah in for Foden, and Antonio out for the likes of Broja. So it'd be Broja and Salah in for Antonio and Foden. The other option is that I take Gray out for a midfielder I'd want for double game week 26 and beyond, such as an Elise, potentially someone like a Saka or even a Rafinha could be a decent option. Or finally, I just roll the transfer. And I think at the moment, because we don't know what might happen before game week 26 and going into double game week 26 with 2 free transfers could be massive to bring Salah in potentially and then also look elsewhere to bring in some double game week players. I think that's the most sensible decision. I'm not set on either way. I'm not set on rolling. I'm not set on making a transfer. But in the next section, I will show you my watch list and then we'll have a little tinker and I'll look at some potential transfers that I could make and why they might potentially be optimal over the coming game weeks. So we're going to discuss this in a little bit more detail in the next section. But essentially what I'm doing with my watch list at the moment is very much oriented around my current chip strategy. And just to remind you, my current chip strategy is playing a late wildcard around between game week 32-ish to game week 35. Preferably playing it in game week 35 so that I can bench boost in game week 36. As a result, the key thing for me at the moment, considering I've got 4 doublers in 25, I've already got 5 doublers in 26, with 2 free transfers could make that 7 or 8 with a -4. For 25 and 26, I'm fairly well set up. For game week 27, I'm currently planning my free hit. As a result, in my head, what I'm currently thinking is if I'm going to bring any players in, whilst I would like to attack double game week 26, and I can do, I'm also thinking about that game week 28 fixture swing. And we're going to discuss that more in the live tinkering section in the next section, that 28 fixture swing. But there is a big fixture swing for quite a few players I own. Their fixtures turn for the worse. And for quite a few players that I don't own, their fixtures turn for the better. So with any transfer I make between now and game week 28, which will probably be around 4 or 5, considering I might take a couple of hits here and there, they've got to be players that at least have a good fixture in 28, 29, 30, and preferably have good fixtures all the way up to around game week 34, game week 35. With all that in mind, if we start with the defenders, Southampton have some really good fixtures from about 27 onwards, and they've got some good players at cheap prices as well. So Livramento, I had for most of the season. He's potentially one that I would look to bring back in, even like a Kyle Walker-Peters. I think that anyone in that defence is pretty good, but at his price, Livramento is definitely the standout option for me. And as a result, if I am bringing in a player that potentially even doesn't double in 26, I think Livramento could be a good shout, even if he ends up being a bench option most weeks. Outside of that, I do think that Wolves defenders are fantastic. Ait-Nouri was obviously benched in game week 24 for Marseille. Johnny was on the bench as well. I've been saying this for a few weeks. Whilst his underlying statistics aren't bad, for me, it's maybe not worth going to Ait-Nouri. I still think he's a decent shout. I still think he'll play quite a lot of minutes, at least over the short term. But for me, it's not worth the risk when his underlying statistics aren't even that amazing. And he's not that much cheaper than someone such as a Kilman at 4.5 million. Between Kilman and Cody, I think they're both very nailed. And the fact that Kilman's 4.5 million, I might just lean to him if I want to bring in a Wolves defender. Of course, Wolves have a double in 26 and they've got good fixtures from 28 onwards. So Wolves defenders definitely one that I want to consider, specifically with the fact they've also got really good underlying data from a defensive perspective. Luca Dean's another good option, specifically because they've got good fixtures for the remainder of the season, really, Villa, and they've got 2 good fixtures to be rearranged at some point, and those haven't been rearranged yet. They're unlikely to be rearranged before game week 28. So if I bring in Luca Dean for 28, or even before then, I'm likely to have decent fixtures and also 2 fixtures to be rearranged. And then the one that I really have my eye on and the one that I probably want the most is Kieran Tierney. Really nice double in 26. Yes, he blanks in 27, but I'll be free hitting in 27. He's got Watford in 28 and then some good fixtures up till around game week 32, game week 33. So Tierney's definitely one that I've got my eye on to potentially double up alongside Ramsdale. So those are the defenders I'm considering. Definitely quite a few on my watch list. And then obviously in game week 28, but nowhere near, definitely not before then, I'm definitely considering Reece James. And if Reece James isn't 100% fit, maybe like a Rudiger. The reason for that is Chelsea have incredible fixtures from 28 onwards. And Ben Crellin has said they're quite likely to have a double game week in game week 28 with Arsenal. So with a double in 28 and some good fixtures moving on, I think a double up, potentially even a triple up of Chelsea might be a great option. For those of you that are wildcarding in 28, I think the likes of Reece James, Mason Mount, and even a Rudiger alongside that might be a fantastic option. Looking at the midfielders, I've taken a couple off of here. Martinelli, the most notable one that has been taken off of this because he got sent off in game week 24. He was definitely on my watch list, but because they don't play in 25, that means that he does miss one game in game week 26, and therefore I don't see the upside in going for Martinelli anymore. So Saka has therefore moved up my Watchlist, or at least up my priority list, and I think he's a really good option. He's obviously more expensive than Martinelli, but he is nailed. He's got decent underlying data, and he has the same fixtures that Martinelli would have. Outside of that, there are two other midfielders that I do really want. You can see they're highlighted in orange as well. The first is Rafinha. He doesn't have the best double in game week 26, but he does have a double nonetheless. He's likely to still be on penalties. Even with Bamford back on the pitch, he could still potentially be on penalties. He's their talisman as well. And from game week 28 onwards, he obviously has Tottenham in 27, but I'd free hit him out for that. From 28 onwards, the fixtures are really good. He's got the likes of Norwich, I think, in game week 29. And he's one of those where if I bring him in now, I get the double in 26, and I also get some good fixtures from 28 onwards. And it's one less transfer I need to make to try and attack that fixture swing. So Rafinha is definitely one I'm considering. And then obviously Salah will be in for 26. And I probably almost definitely will be triple captain Salah in 26 as well. There are two others on my list just because they're at a cheap price and they're good for different reasons. Elise looks fantastic. The issue we've got with Crystal Palace players, as we saw with Edouard, is that Elise and Edouard, anyone really, apart from probably Zaha in that attack, is prone to rotation because they've got so many options. They've got Ayew, Mateta, Benteke, Zaha, Elise, Eze. I've probably missed some out in there as well. They've got quite a few players that can play in those forward positions. And I just don't think that, therefore, it is probably worth going for that risk. But Elise does look fantastic, and the fixtures are pretty good as well. The main reason that I potentially wouldn't go for Elise is, whilst the fixtures are good for the remainder of the season, there are some players with better fixtures from 28 onwards. And I don't think the double's that amazing, with Chelsea being one of the fixtures. And I wouldn't need him for game week 27 when they've got Burnley. So I think Elise is probably good for those of you that aren't free hitting in 27 because they've got a great fixture. But for me, I think I'd probably prefer to go for Rafinha or Saka. And then I've got Cornet in there as well, because Burnley's double game week 27 has been confirmed. And as a result, I think Burnley players are pretty good. They've got a double in 26. They've got a double in 27 as well. They play in blank game week 30. So I just think that with a Burnley player, you're getting lots of doubles coming up. You're getting them at a pretty cheap price, and you're also covering some of the blanks as well. So I think you could definitely do worse than Cornet in that midfield spot. Finally, moving on to the attackers, I've only got two on here. And like I said, the only reason they're really probably on here is just to give me something to talk about. I suppose Broja is the one that I would actually quite like. Only 5.2 million, I believe. Just really, really good value. And similarly to Livramento, great fixtures from game week 28 onwards. So I think if I am to sell Antonio soon, or even potentially King, Broja will be the one, just because he's great value. He looks fairly now on that Southampton side. Southampton look very, very good at the moment. And like I said, from 28 onwards, that's one less transfer to worry about. I can put him on the bench. I can play him. And I just think he's a great option to have in the squad. And then I've got Weghorst on there for the same reason as Cornet. Double in 26, double in 27, and good fixtures long term, and some other fixtures, another two after that to be rearranged as well, I think against Villa and Everton. So that's my current watch list. With respect to players that I desperately want and that I'm likely to bring in, Tierney's definitely one that I'm looking to bring in ahead of double game week 26, and then one of Saka and Rafinha alongside Salah. I'd say they're most likely to be my transfers over the coming weeks. Like I said, if I load up on Arsenal players, they've got great fixtures from 28 onwards, and I'll free hit them out in 27, so it's not a massive issue there. And then if I'm likely to bring in a striker, it will probably be Broja for Antonio. That's the current watch list. We're just going to do a short tinker now where I go through my team for the next few weeks, show you what those transfers might look like, and then show you why I'm so, not concerned, but why I'm trying to plan ahead for that game week 28 fixture swing. So in this final section, as always, just thought I'd go through my team over the next few weeks because we can start planning ahead now. I think that COVID's definitely not gone away by any means, but it's starting to interfere a little bit less with the Premier League. Obviously, a lot of people playing their chips over the coming weeks as well. So I think planning ahead's definitely back, and I know it helps a lot of you to plan alongside me. So by all means, bring up this page alongside me. It's fpl.team. Pause the video, get that up. fpl.team in your URL. Plan ahead. Compare your chip strategy. For those of you that are wildcarding in 28, it might change. Maybe you've only got one free hit, but it's definitely useful to see others' plans and to see how they differ from yours. So as I said, current plan is to probably roll my transfer in game week 25. That's not for sure. I could maybe be inspired by a potential move, but I'm not too keen to make a move this week. So let's assume I do roll the transfer. I've got 2.3 million in the bank. Roll the transfer for game week 26. Let me sort my team out for game week 26 based on that. So I'd obviously bring in all of my players that play twice. I might want to play Calvert-Lewin ahead of Cucurella. I might not at this stage. I'll have to consider that. I'll probably play Cucurella ahead of Dalot. So the team would look something like this. Obviously, it's a potential bench boost option, but almost definitely I'd be bringing in Salah to captain him. So at this stage in 26, I've got two options. I could now bin off Calvert-Lewin and Foden and bring in Salah alongside Fernandes. But at this stage, I'm not necessarily sure I need to do that because I remember I'm free hitting in 27, so I don't need to keep Fernandes for game week 27 because I can bring him in on the free hit. And then from 28 onwards, I don't really like Fernandes's fixtures. He's got Manchester City, I think then Tottenham, and there's definitely a few tricky fixtures for Manchester United from 28 onwards. So I'm realistically changing my structure to try and keep Fernandes for one fixture. And whilst Leeds is a fantastic fixture, I think I'd rather just sell Fernandes for Salah. So I think at this stage, remember 2.3 million in the bank, I'd probably sell Fernandes for Salah here for triple captaincy. And then, like I said, I think Tierney's someone that I definitely do want to bring in. And I think it would probably be for Dawson. Now, I don't particularly want Dalot long-term either, but I do think that Dallow's the slightly better hold over Dawson. So let's say that I sell Dawson for, as I said, potentially for Tierney. Bring in Tierney there. He's got the double, so he would probably go in ahead of Cucurella at this stage. Maybe move Cucurella to your first sub here. So that would be my 2 free transfers. Still have 1 million in the bank. I'll just scroll down for you so you can see that there. So still got 1 million in the bank, 2 free transfers used. At this stage, it's a double game week. I'll almost definitely take a -4 to bring in an extra doubler. But like I said, I've really got game week 28 in mind. And so the players that I've probably got as options to bring in would likely be Saka and Rafinha in that midfield spot. Or I could potentially just use a transfer to bring in Broja ahead of game week 28, but he doesn't double. He's got Everton. So realistically, I could just make that transfer in game week 28. So I think at this stage, I'd probably take out Foden for one of Rafinha or Saka. For now, I'm going to say Rafinha just so that I'm not tripled up on Arsenal. And I do think Rafinha is a great long-term hold as well. So that's how it would look. 2.5 million in the bank is really nice for game week 28 to shift it around, to potentially get those 2 or 3 Chelsea players in, to potentially get some Wolves players in as well. So that's the way the team would look ahead of 26. So I've got Ramsdale, Tierney, Trent, Salah, Jota, King, Rafinha. So I'd have 7 doublers for a -4, which I really don't think is too bad, considering that I've got Cancelo as one of my single game week, Bowen and Antonio against Newcastle. Not too bad. I know Antonio's not great, but it's not a terrible fixture. And then Southampton for Calvert-Lewin as well. And I could potentially play Cucurella. I think that that's a really, really good team for double game week 26, considering I haven't played my wildcard, I'm not free hitting, etc. And like I said, I would be triple captain in Salah almost definitely in this week. If we then move ahead to game week 27, of course, you can see straight away why I'm free hitting. I have almost dead-ended my team into this, but I've got 2 Arsenal players, 3 Liverpool players. I've got 2 Everton players against Manchester City. I've got Rafinha against Tottenham. Double West Ham against Wolves. It's just not a good look, is it? Especially considering the fact that Spurs play Leeds, so I'd probably want at least one of Kane or Son. I'd want Fernandes or Ronaldo. I'd potentially want some Southampton players. They face Norwich, so I could get a Livramento or a Broja in. So I've justified it enough on this channel over the recent weeks, but for me at least, and for my team, I'm looking likely almost definitely to free hit in 27. Also, I didn't even speak about the fact, considering that Burnley also have their double game week in 27 now, I could bring in Pope, Cornet, Weghorst as well for their double game week. I could almost potentially bring in Leicester players as well, because Leicester now have a fixture against Burnley. So I think 27 could be a huge week for the free hit, and therefore I'll probably free hit in 27. So then I'll go into 28 with 2.5 million in the bank and 1 free transfer. So let me set up the team without that free transfer, but I will caveat with I'm likely to take probably a -4, even as much as a -8, to really just set my team up to compete with the wildcarders, because I know a lot of people will be wildcarding in 28. If it only takes me a -4 or -8 to get close to a wildcard team, I'm not too displeased about that, and then save the wildcard for later. So let's set up the team with the players that I do have, and I'll show you the players that are potentially issues. So this is the way that the team would currently look. Ramsdale's absolutely fine in there. Let me just set up the captaincy, because I wouldn't have the vice captaincy on. Let's just put the vice captaincy on like a Rafinha for now. So Ramsdale in goals, fine. The back 4's fine as well. Cancelo against United is a fine fixture. United aren't great. Then Trent, Tierney and Cucurella, all with good fixtures in there. So perfectly happy with the keeper and defence. The midfield 3's fine. Leicester, Rafinha against Leicester, and then the 2 Liverpool boys against West Ham. I'd probably have Salah captain. West Ham aren't that great defensively. But there are 7 players that I don't particularly want. Now, as I said, I don't need to do them all in 28. It doesn't matter if a couple of my players have the tricky fixtures. For example, King against Arsenal, if he could potentially score. I know I've got a double Arsenal defence. Calvert-Lewin against Tottenham, who knows? He's potentially on penalties. Like, it's not ideal to have these players. And I'd probably have Bowen in ahead of Antonio, by the way. Bowen against Liverpool, who knows what might happen there. So I don't think you need the perfect team every week. And we've spoken about this from a psychological perspective. You can't have the perfect team every week. Unless you're got unlimited free hits, so you're taking massive hits each week. There will be weeks when your team's not perfect. So realistically, I'd probably take at least a -4 here to take 2 of these players out, potentially a -8 to just set my team up moving forward, and then I wouldn't need to take hits in future weeks. A position that I definitely would want is I would want a Chelsea defender in there, and it means that I'd probably be playing a back five this week. But for example, if Reece James is fit and firing, I could bring in Reece James for Dalot. Straight away, that's one less player I need to play here. Then from everything from here is a potential hit, but I could start bringing in players in and around that. So we've said, for example, Arsenal could bring in an Arsenal player from here on onwards. So it could potentially be someone like a Saka. Again, I haven't given this too much thought particularly, but I could bring in Saka there. So straight away, I know it's a strange looking formation on your screen, but that's a decent enough team for 28. And then from 29, I've got another free transfer. 30, I've got a free transfer if I'm not free hitting. And I could slowly start to build to that. And yes, for sure, a wild card would look significantly better than this, but it's not the worst team in the world. And I don't think I necessarily need a wild card here. And like I said, I could potentially take a -8 now. If I start targeting, maybe for King, I bring in Broja. Straight away, then I've got a good, decent starting 11. Yes, that's taken me a -8 to get there, but it might be worth that to preserve the wild card for game week 28, for game week 35 to then bench boost in 36. If then I move to game week 29, the team looks pretty good once again. So you might want to keep almost the identical team. You'd probably bring in Antonio for Cucurella potentially. And I might, again, this might be the week that I say, right, I'm going to sell Antonio this week, potentially Ollie Watkins. Now, I don't know who they have. They have West Ham that week. But from then on onwards, they're not terrible. The fixtures for Villa, you could potentially make moves. Again, there's not been that much thought because game week 29 is just too far ahead. But I guess the purpose that I wanted to show you here is why I'm making transfers with 28 in mind. Because if you don't make transfers with 28 in mind, let me just refresh my team here for you. And I'll just move to game week 28. Obviously, I've got transfers to make, but this is the way the team would look if I didn't make any transfers with game week 28 fixture swing in mind. You can see lots of players with terrible fixtures. Triple West Ham, with Liverpool. Triple Manchester United with Manchester City. King against Arsenal. Double Everton against Tottenham. So if you're not planning a wild card in 28, just beware of this fixture swing. It's coming. It's going to hit you hard if you don't plan for it. And with your free transfers, you can still attack double game week 26. But the likes of Arsenal, the likes of Wolves, and potentially someone like a Rafinha, they double in 26, but they also have good fixtures from 28 onwards. So I'm going to stop my ramble there, but I just want to warn you that this is coming and definitely start addressing it. Or you just say, don't care, I'll dead end into game week 27. I won't waste my free hit. I'll dead end into game week 27 and I'll wildcard out of it in 28. That's another great strategy. I might end up doing that anyway, but I'm going to try and get away with not wildcarding in 28, free hit in 27, and then wildcard later in the season. As always, let me know what your updated chip strategy is down below. Let me know how you plan on navigating this fixture swing in game week 28. And if you plan on wildcarding, or potentially like me, just planning ahead and using your free transfers and maybe a few cheeky hits as well. So guys, there you have it. That is my game week 25 team selection, my transfer plans, my watch list, and also a bit of a live tinker around my current chip strategy and also my transfer plans for future weeks as well. If you are enjoying the content here on this channel, please do remember to like, comment, and subscribe. As I always say, those 3 things are completely free for you to do, but they help support the channel massively. If you are enjoying the content as well, the videos, we also live stream now on a weekly basis. So I've got a live stream on Saturday morning at 9 a.m. sharp. We're going to be streaming for around 2 hours up to the deadline. So if you do want to join me for that live stream and you want to ask your questions in the chat, I get through as many possible questions. I'll advise you to the best of my ability as well. So do join me for that. Turn on notifications so that you know when I do go live. But until next time, guys, I hope you get a massive green arrow for game week 25. Cheers. Bye-bye.